right, guys. So got a little bit of a indoor activity today since it's windy and cold as heck outside. I got my buddy Jason here. He's been a friend of mine for over 20 years now, and he comes from a serious truck background, and he has a lot of influence in things that took place around here and things that I did over the years, and a lot of similarities, a lot of common friends. And he's been out doing some lives. So if you guys have seen more activity on our TikTok and Instagram, well, TikTok and YouTube lives, he's been the one behind the camera doing that. He's still very up to date, even though he got into some other business of doing tree work and some other things and got a little out of the truck scene. He's still very knowledgeable on up to date things, and he was one of the first people to really scour the internet, because his previous job, he had a little bit of extra time. He didn't have to work real hard. And he could be on the internet when the internet was fairly new and learning about steering, the coolest wheels coming out, the newest tires coming out. And he was my lead-in for a lot of things that I didn't even know were coming. He knew what tires were coming out, what things were debuting. He was watching the internet way beforehand. So we'll let him take over and kind of tell you some of the story along the way.
So we both... every Memorial Day weekend, we'd go to the Outer Banks and cruise up and down the beach at Oregon Inlet. And JW was kind of the square body crowd, and boggers and the wide welds. And I was more at the time, the Jeep crowd. And we kept kind of eyeballing each other because we were both from the same area. One south of the river, he's south of the river, I'm north of the river. And for a couple of years, we just kept wondering, who's this guy? Who's this guy? Who's this guy? Who's this guy? Well, finally in February of '04, I bought a brand new graphite gray sport Super Duty. Put about 10 inches of lift on it, 38s. And JW had a friend that had one that was real similar that he ended up purchasing. And his friend stopped. We started comparing trucks. So that mutual friend ended up inviting me to go to Bloomsburg with them for the four-wheel and off-road nationals. And that's when we really got to talking to each other. And I think we were there 3 days, and I don't think we spent more than 30 minutes apart while we were awake. Yeah. I mean, we walked that entire fairgrounds. I think that they said there was 30,000.
It was a lot.
It was a lot of people at that truck.
And that was the first real, believe it or not, we hadn't attended a lot of those jamborees. Matter of fact, I don't think my two brothers have ever been to one, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. All these customers we get these days that we build trucks for, that we buy trucks from. I've got two out in the building that I know for sure have gone to jamborees, and I haven't been to another one since. It was just kind of a one-and-done thing. It was a spur of the moment. I actually loaded my dad's 62 Chevy that you guys see in the showroom sometimes in the videos, and I took my red truck. We threw them behind. Actually, one of them went behind my Super Duty that wasn't even mine at the time. And you towed the other one? No, you drove.
I drove separate. The time you're thinking of, I towed the 62 to Monsters on the Beach.
That's right, yeah.
That's a whole other story we'll get into a little bit later.
But the whole beach aspect, backing up to that, when you go to Oregon Inlet, Nags Head, OBX they call it nowadays. They didn't even call it OBX back then. That's something fairly new. We've been going forever. But we always went Memorial Day, and you'd see the Virginia tags, and that's how you kind of know where people were from. You'd see Maryland, you'd see, all kinds of everywhere. New York, New Jersey. It was the beach to go to because you could drive on it. And, every year my truck would progress bigger from, small tires, 36s one year, then 39s, and then steady, bigger. But the two Super Duties he was referred to, I forgot how that connection happened, but they were very similar trucks, similar colors.
In fact, in '04, around here, you very rarely saw a truck running a remote reservoir shop.
Yep.
And that was, I'd kind of gotten into some of the West Coast stuff that you didn't see around here, and that other Super Duty that JW now owns had a lot of the same West Coast stuff on it. We're both running Bilstein remote reservoirs. I think my truck had Deaver Springs on it, which you didn't see around here.
Super Duty headquarters, which are they even around anymore?
I don't think they're even.
I don't think they are anymore either.
I know Deaver Springs, I believe, is, and of course Bilstein is.
Yeah.
But
and that was some of the trendy stuff. Like, other than four-wheel drive magazines, you had no connection unless you went to these events.
Right.
and if you didn't go to these events, you had no connection until the internet. And what he's referring to is the trends in the West Coast is where things started. It always was that way, even back in the day of magazines. So the shocks he was running, the springs he was running, the company he was dealing with, even though we had a full-fledged off-road shop, we didn't use any of that stuff. You know, we didn't, you know, we were Superlift, we were the stuff that you saw around here. It was the norm. But when you start bringing that unusual stuff, you bring in a different clientele base also, you know, the people that want to be different. And that's how his truck stood out. You know, it was an '04 Super Duty, which was cool to start with, and it was brand new, but, you know, he already had the stuff that you didn't see.
Another real weird coincidence is I think I bought the first set of automatic steps in Virginia from you.
Yep.
And now y'all produce a production kit.
Yep.
Of automatic steps for a square body.
So Amp Research and Best Top were two manufacturers that were in one basically at that time, and power steps were expensive. Like that was a thing that you could buy $100 Nerf bar. Back then they were probably $1,000.
I believe they were $1,500. But
okay.
Yeah,
so
they were
less than they were now.
Amount
but they were a lot of money, and you didn't see them. It wasn't something that like you noticed when you saw a truck, you saw tires, and you saw wheels. The steps hid, but it was a practical thing because getting in a Super Duty is not easy. You know, they don't have a big step down area like a lot of vehicles. So getting up in a 10-inch lifted Super Duty is a little tough. And we had the account, you know, because we'd been selling a few, but yours was the first set around here, for sure. And then a lot followed.
Yeah,
a lot
followed.
Trendy things is crazy. You know, all right, we had to clip that a little bit, even with all this freaking great equipment that my guys get us to order. Christian's sitting over there with a battery pack in his lap trying to keep things charged because it died. But we're talking about trendy things, and trendy things, you know, or anything, clothes, whatever. But trends usually started on the West Coast, came across, and Jason followed a lot of those trends, and we were pretty set in our ways. So he was a little bit the outcast, but he was also from the West End. There's more money over there. People spent more money on things, whereas over here on this side of the river, things were a little bit more meek. He was one of the first to also, even though we were dealing with Weld, kind of say, hey, I think there's more there with that. And there was a Weld wheel called the Tucson, which we still have a couple stuffed away. And that was a wheel that was coming out. He was definitely the first person to tell me about it. And he said, man, it's got a lock. You know, think of a wheel and a lock, you think of a bead lock. But this was a simulated lock. And Mickey Thompson had it, but it was a little bit goofy looking. It wasn't the greatest thing. But this was really cool. You could powder coat them. You could do a lot of things. So with us having the connection with Weld, and at the time our connection was strong, as I'll lead into, he said, man, we need to try to do these.
So we ordered a set of, I believe they were 17 by 12 Tucsons with the black Weld Racing Simulock ring, which had a really unique look because it was a big fat ring, and then it had cut out into it machined Weld Racing. So it had a real good look to it. Unfortunately, the wheel was very difficult to mount and balance tires on, which became a problem later on. You almost had to cut the tires off.
You had to cut the tires off.
There was no drop center manufactured in the wheel. So
Right.
the wheel ended up being a failure, but it was a lead into a new trend.
Yep. And it was a failure that led in our direction because it was at the demise of Weld in the first place. Weld was constantly shifting, and the truck side of it wasn't. So Weld didn't close. They still made motorcycle wheels. They still made race car wheels, which is what they were known for. But the truck division closed. And we got the phone call along with others. We just happened to be the one that accepted the phone call on the terms, and we bought everything they had, which the Tucson was very limited numbers. Like, could have been less than 12 sets, you know, from what we were told. I don't know. I know we had a set on the Fabtech truck.
Right.
You had a set. I'm pretty sure.
Big Dave had a set.
Yeah, Big Dave had a set. We built a Harley truck. I'll get Dave on one of these one day because he was another one of the customers that came from Jason. They were good friends, and almost went with us to Bloomsburg.
Yeah.
He's a bodybuilding guy. He went to a bodybuilding contest, and that's the only reason he didn't go. But somebody else that I didn't know at the time, like I said, Jason was a great acquaintance of his, and he became a customer immediately. Currently, he had a Super Duty 7.3 then.
He did. He had an early
Extended cab.
99 extended cab short bed that I put an 8-inch skid on and 38-inch PJs. And, it was, you say your side was meek, but it wasn't, because y'all were the ones with the built small blocks and the Flowmasters, and the truck went down the road blowing dust at the stoplight because it was running 10-to-1 compression and a little bit of race gas in it. It smelled good, So him being modest, saying meek, my side of town, we were still running all stock motors and, maybe aftermarket exhaust or something like that. So, back in the day, I don't know, remember y'all had the Pike Boys racing stickers.
Yeah.
I mean, there was,
We talked about the Pike the other day. For those that missed that, we're on Petersburg Turnpike, so everybody calls this the Pike. So this was our little thoroughfare. There's some street racing, there's some things that happen that probably shouldn't, and this is our area that it all takes place. And we did. We had some Pike Boy racing stickers on the mud bog truck and stuff. So, we had what we could build, with what hands could do, and what manufacturing, which we do now in our own shop. Basically, you might as well call it manufacturing. The steps, the steering, the track bar. Daniel and Brian pretty much do have manufacturing, but the items that he was finding and turning us onto were just manufactured in the West Coast, where they had tools and equipment. And we're talking 20 years ago now. What was the size of this building for a machine now, the size of this desk maybe. Things have changed, kind of like this computer right here. Things do change, but the trend that he ran with was pretty cool, and those wheels were really cool. That orange Harley truck Dave still has. He bought it from me in 05. It was an 04.
Yeah.
So he's coming up on 19 years, but his 7.3 quickly came in for the hangers and bigger setup, and it was a bastard child because it was an early 99, so the track bar was different, the pitman arm was different. There was a lot of differences, even though 99 should have been 99. They didn't make a 98 Ford heavy truck. So it was produced in 98, it was called a 99. That was a really strange truck that probably wouldn't have been figured out by anybody doing it.
I can remember the first work that you actually did on my Super Duty was most lift kits back then came with the rear sitting a little bit low. And back then it was a California West Coast slant, not could be confused with the horrid Carolina squat. But either way, JW said, man, we got to get the rear end of that truck up a little bit. That looks terrible.
Well, as soon as you put a trailer behind it, it was really bad. It was squatting dog.
We brought it in and put a couple inches under the rear of it to get it looking a little bit more aggressive and had a better look to it, and went on from there. And from there, I think our next big event was probably Monsters on the Beach.
Yep.
And every year, Mother's Day weekend, they'd run the monster trucks on the beach, and I actually was friends with the guy that was the originator and the promoter of it, and talked to him about it. He brought some of his stuff down. I brought my truck down. We went down there and checked it out, and led to later on, you put some trucks on the beach.
Yeah, I don't think I didn't go that first year, or the first couple of years you'd been going, but you suggested it, and then we put it on the radar. And I think we went the first year just to look, and down there, it's a big military area, so they've got 6 or 8 off-road shops, one on every corner. So those guys were the kind of the big deal. They had their booth, and they had their, their wheels and tires and a couple display trucks, and we were very much the outsider. But I knew the following year we were going to show up and show out there pretty strong, and we did. We took some.
I think that year definitely opened some eyes and caused a little bit of. I wouldn't say jealousy, but maybe
some animosity.
Some animosity of who's this kid from? Who's this? Because at the time we were still pretty young, and those shops down there like, well, who's this Davis guy? Where did he come from? All of a sudden he showed up down here on 46-inch Baja claws, and when that tire was brand new, and they're like, we're in the,
Yeah, it was
really
different, and we didn't
put-
promote that side of the business. No different than today. The flow of work is all we can do. As it is, and Daniel's down there today on the phone like nonstop because the main guy's out, and there's more work than we can ever handle. So that's why we do, or they do, kind of subject themselves on what they want to do. But we were in a smaller shop, way less amount of stuff, way less stock, but we still were bringing stuff in like crazy. We had, when we did your truck, we had everything. I think we did that in the afternoon.
Yeah.
He just rolled in after hours. We popped them in the bay, had the blocks in stock, had the U-bolts in stock. When we did the guy Dave's truck we're referring to, same way. We had everything, even though it was an early '99. There was complications, but we overcame them. We could figure the stuff out for that. But it was the early times. It was the beginning of things.
It was. It really was. And then, at that point, I think you were kind of on the fence of that. That was where you wanted to really go, because it was a real time consuming.
It was very time consuming, and what we were doing prior to kind of going public with things was we were building the trucks for the lot. So I'd bring in a nice stock Super Duty, a nice stock Dodge Ram, and we put a lift kit on it. And we were going a little bigger. Well, back then no dealers were doing that. Like, I know of maybe 2 across the country at the time that were doing it, but they were doing a 2 or 3 inch kit. They were doing just enough to make the truck look different. So this was before you had all these guys that are out there. You can research this. You can go back. We're talking about 2003, 4, 2002. I think we officially opened the shop in 2000 as its own business. But, I was taking a truck in every couple of days and telling Daniel and Brian, use your call, put an 8 inch kit on a Super Duty. 8 inch kit, holy crap, that's big. That pretty much puts you at Virginia legal bumper heights. Super Duties were pretty forgiving for bumper height, but we would do 8 inches, 36s. We ordered so much of that stuff. The place we were ordering it from was like, they couldn't believe it. They were like, what are you doing with this? I mean, every day there was a tractor trailer load showing up here. They're like, what? I mean, it's not my business. Where's this stuff going? Like, are y'all reselling it? And we're like, no, we're installing it. But every day they'd pump a truck out, and we'd put 8 inches, 36s. It became kind of like the Davis combination is today on square bodies. An 8 inch kit on a Super Duty with 36 Pernelli Jones or STS trucks was 12 inch wide wheels. That was our combo.
And that volume of sales is what led to the invite to the four-wheel and off-road jamboree, because we were actually displaying. We weren't entries in the show.
I forgot about that.
We were displaying their products in their booth in the midway of the show.
Yeah, because I had one of the first sets of 46 claws, and that was what was on the Super Duty.
Yeah, and that was on the.
I mean, on my red Chevrolet.
My 74.
My square body, which I still have. And that was right. We were right across from it was National Tire's booth, right? Or National Wheel and Tire, which also had Denman and Interco, Super Swamper in their booth, because they were the biggest sellers of their product. I forgot about that. Yep, we were displayers.
Yeah, we were not entries as like participants of the actual show.
Right.
We were there as a vendor display.
Yep.
For the vendor he's speaking of. And shortly thereafter is when you started taking on actual customers for outside work other than car lot.
And we still squeezed it in, like Dave was one of those customers that was like, look, I'm no rush, I got a car, and he still always has a car. He's still got a Super Duty, he's always got a Mustang, and he's had 4 or 5 that I've bought and sold, traded for him over the years, and he's become a good customer, and he'd be good on here. I've even told him I wanted to put him on one of these. Because he goes back to some old school roots, and we knocked his truck out in 2 or 3 days. It was whatever, just it was kind of fit in after the fact work, and he was on 40s with 14 wides.
Yeah, I remember when we both went to 6.0s. Actually, before he had his Harley truck, he gets so mad because he'd buy some exhaust and an air intake, and we'd get into some drag racing that may or may not have been on the street, and he didn't quite have the technique of bumping getting a turbo up, getting it up on the turbo, and he called JW and wanted to spend another couple thousand because I beat him again with a stock truck.
Yeah, he was. There was many people that made that phone call that wanted that look, wanted the steps, wanted this. I mean, it was even hitches. Like, what was the coolest hitch? It was so many things that you guys, nowadays, you just take for granted. You get on the internet, you get on Amazon, you can Google things. You didn't have that really. Like, I mean, it's hard to even remember back to that. But you just didn't have that technology. But we were fortunate. We had accounts with most all the vendors, though we might not have used a lot of them. We had it, and we had enough, I guess, fluff there that when we would call somewhere, like we ended up dealing with Super Duty headquarters for some stuff after the fact, and Rise Industries.
Yep.
They had seen, heard, or knew, or if they hadn't, when we had to do an app with them to become a vendor, and we listed the stuff we did and with who, it was like done. It was like no question. So, and we were still 3 youngsters. Actually Daniel wasn't even in the picture at that time. He was still in high school. But we were running a business by day and a shop by night almost. Even though they were in the shop all day, it was more just lot work. Build a truck, sell a truck, build a truck, sell a truck. And like I said, we pushed the envelope. It also led to customers that got an 8-inch kit and 36s to coming back, making it a 10-inch kit, wanting 40-inch tires. So the sold product was good enough, but then when they got around somebody, truck envy's bad. They go to a car show, and they're here, and this truck's here. They want to know how they can be here. And we had a lot of people that played that seesaw, I mean, to the hilt. Monthly customer that just had to have something different, had to do something else. Younger kids literally working to save up a couple $1,000 to come do something different to their truck. And then Jason was bringing in a lot of customers too for,
Then also, that you had the car lots, you had stuff in stock here that people could look at and they could see what 8 inches and 37s look like.
Yep.
Or 10 inches and 40s, or, where you go to the average four-wheel drive shop, they could show you a lot of pictures, but they didn't have a truck sitting there with it had it installed.
Yeah, and it wasn't anything like now. You can jump on the computer and see pictures of what this looks like.
Right.
And,
compared to the other,
right.
The tire builder app stuff wasn't out. None of that stuff was out. So, if you wanted to see a Super Duty on 8 inches of lift and 37s with 10-inch wheels, there was one sitting here that they could look at in person, see what it looked like. With a stock one sitting right beside it. To see in person what the before and after of their truck would look like.
Yeah, I've kind of forgotten that part of it too, because it was.
That makes, I think.
It made a lot of sales because people could envision it, and sometimes they'd be like, no, too big. Especially if they brought their wife with them. They're like, you're not doing that. You're gonna go with a smaller lift kit, and then most of them were eventually back to go bigger again. And the cool thing with a Super Duty is it wasn't stuck. Like, we turned down so much Chevrolet IFS work. Do you want to do it? Because you put a 6-inch on there, it's a 6-inch lift. Like, you can turn torsion bars up and get 7, but with a Super Duty, you could go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, however much you wanted to do. Yeah. You could keep adding, keep adjusting, and you could grow the truck, which is, the Super Duty was a huge part of our business.
I think when the gray Super Duty went to its ride height now, was in your driveway.
Yeah, it was.
House.
Wouldn't fit in the garage. I got pictures. It was sitting outside, pulled everything off the frame, redid the frame, repainted the frame, repowder coated the parts, repainted the parts, and literally put that together to take Daniel to prom. Yeah. Finished to take Daniel and his girlfriend to prom.
That truck had a smooth painted frame when you started.
Yep.
I mean, so it was already a real unique truck in the beginning. Of course,
changed the color and did little things different.
Yeah, little accents that really made it pop, made a big difference. And to me, that brought more and more people around. You didn't see the plain Jane, stock black, flat black look. You had a gloss frame.
It did. It brought a lot of people in that wanted to.
On 40s with polished reservoir
and
shocks
color and even powder coat. Powder coat was a new thing back then.
Yeah.
I mean, it was not normal. You had a powder coat shop, maybe 2 around within a 50-mile radius, but you couldn't go places and get things powder coated. So we started doing some lift kits with accented colors, and that really threw people for a loop.
It was almost to the point where if you wanted to see something that was almost similar to a SEMA style build back then on the East Coast, you'd have to come here to see it.
We'd have some stuff. I mean, again, we would buy trucks that were lifted too, and then we'd pull stuff off and redo it. I remember some lift kits we pulled apart and repowder coated and repainted, and changed the colors up on trucks. You might have a white truck with red stuff under it, and we changed it to blue or whatever, and it definitely made a statement. You didn't see that very much at all.
No.
And Monsters on the Beach was a neat show, and all the guys, some of them probably watched this. We became friendly with all the different places because Pungo Off-Road's one of them. We still do stuff with that guy today. He needs something, we got it. We need something, he's got it. We were just the outsider that came in pretty hard, to those guys. And I think they thought we were, a threat. We weren't ever a threat. We were just another guy enjoying trucks. And matter of fact, I went on a couple adventures with some of those guys through some of the manufacturers and suppliers through some trips, and got along with them all. Got their phone numbers still on my phone. Haven't talked to them in ages, but Brian and Daniel handle most of that stuff now. But we're on a level playing field where somebody could help the other. Hey, my customer's up by you. He's got a bad tire. Can he come by? We always try to help everybody. Don't think it was always perceived the other way, but we were the easy guy to deal with. And then that led the size of things to the Fabtech truck. And then also you did the BFGoodrich.
Yes, I forgot about that. We did a ad for BFGoodrich.
Yep, Jason took a Super Duty. I think they shipped us the tires.
It was the brand new KM2 at the time.
Yep.
And a 37.
So like a 05 or 06 Super Duty.
It was a cold sprung Super Duty. I remember that. So it had to be a 05 or newer. And there was a advertising company in town that had the contract with BFGoodrich to do a magazine print ad.
Yeah, and I think they filmed some stuff for a commercial.
They filmed some for a commercial too. And he called me and said, "Hey man, you want to take a truck up to the mountains for the day? I'll pay you such and such." And I'm like, "You're gonna pay me to go four-wheeling for the day on a lifted Super Duty?" Sure. So we go up there, and this is a full-blown production. They had a lunch, all catered lunch, and tractor trailer, and everything up there. And
I didn't get to experience it, so I only heard stories.
It was a good time. In fact, another local four-wheel drive shop was asked to send a recovery vehicle in case I got stuck. And I ended up pulling him out. But it was a good time. So he had a early Bronco on 38s, and then I was in the Super Duty on, I believe it was 37s.
37s, I think it was. Yep.
And we found a power line up there in the mountains. They took some video and some stills of me going up and down some hills, and then we found another good rutted hill that this guy set up with this big professional camera on his tripod, and he's sitting down in the rut, and they basically kept having me make full throttle runs almost to him and stop and come back down, and I let off and mud just rained down on top of this guy like a hailstorm. I mean, it was, but they just kept doing. You couldn't ask for a funner day. If I could pick one job that I could do every day, man, that'd be it. I can tell you.
Yeah,
it was a good time.
Yeah, got to hear about it. Didn't get to experience it like a lot of other things, but. And then Fabtech came along. The Fabtech truck. We refer to that a lot. There's a picture in the office, and I really need to clean it up. It's dusty and dirty and covered with stuff right now. But that was a truck that Fabtech came to us, and it was a 99. Well, they came to us last minute for one, and said, "Look, we need R&D on our coilover conversion." And they had this big, massive 4.0 coilover. We still have one of those on display, also covered with stuff you can't even see it. But this shock was huge. Like the body was like this, the shaft was like that, huge canister reservoir. Like you didn't see that kind of stuff. And they made that to convert a 99 to 04 leaf spring to coil for ride. Everybody said they wanted to ride better. And they said, well, we want you guys to do it. We're going to ship you a kit, and it's going to need some tweaking, and it did. It had adjustable 4-link arms, and I think something about those was not right. I remember Daniel literally with my dad after hours because Brian had something going on working in the shop, and this was a truck that we had to source at the last second, and I didn't have a 99 04 truck. Crazy, but we didn't. And it had to be diesel, which would have been a 7.3. Basically, it could have been could have found a 6.0, but back then they'd been expensive. So the truck I found had a tree fall across the bed, just prior to me getting it. So not only did it have to get built, it had to go to the body shop, and then we had to have it ready for a show and an event that Fabtech was flying in. Fabtech, California, I guess, best I can remember.
I'm pretty sure.
They might have had another distribution place, but the rep we had was a California guy, and it needed to be here for this event because they wanted to debut it, which happened to be the Monsters on the Beach show, and that was a big to-do, and they offered it to us instead of some other companies. So we went a little further. Fabtech's got blue coloring, so we ended up fixing the bodywork on the truck and two-toning it from the bodywork up. So we only had to spray half the truck. Then we had a guy come in and do graphics, which looked a lot like their advertising graphics for some of their trucks they built for SEMA. And the truck was not a SEMA build by any means. I guess it could have gone. I don't know why it didn't, actually, other than it was, an older truck, and SEMA wants to have all brand new stuff. But we actually debuted that truck there, which led to us doing stuff for Superlift. Over time, had one of their first 10-inch kits where they were selling an 8-inch with a hanger, if I remember correctly, and debuted one of those for one of the events.
I actually drove that truck too in Monsters on the Beach. That truck actually drove pretty good.
Yeah, and it was a 300,000 mile 7.3. That truck's still around. We sold it in 07, 08 maybe,
Probably.
and that truck still is seen today. And it had high 300,000 miles when we sold it. It was crazy, but it ran and drove great. Yeah. It was on Tucson's. It had blue rings, which I still have the blue rings. We pulled those off when I sold it because people didn't want to pay what we were asking and wanted a little more neutral tire and wheel. It was expensive back then. That combination was $5,000 maybe.
Yeah, close to it.
Yeah,
Because it was about $500 or $600 a wheel. Yeah,
$500 tire. So that we weren't being cheap, but that was
we was running 18-inch Toyo open country
38s.
Yep. 38. So yeah, they were running close to $600 a piece on tires.
Yep. Yeah. So it was $5,000 tire and wheel combo, and the people were like, "Look, we'll buy it. We want something a little smaller though." It was kind of wide, even though it was a 12. So I think that truck ended up on like a 10 and something else, and then it ended up on some 14s. It was crazy. It was still around. It was up Palmyra way or somewhere out that way. That truck's still floating around. Still cool looking. You can't miss it. It's the Fabtech truck, per us. And then the Superlift truck was cool. We did work with Bully Dog. A lot of manufacturers came out of the woodwork for stuff for that era.
Well, do you remember drag racing the Wayyy Corvette with the Bully Dog truck?
Yeah. Bully Dog truck was pretty nasty. That was supposed to be my dad's truck. It was an almost brand new King Ranch that he liked, and we put 8 inches, maybe 10 on it, 14 wide welds, 38 Pernellis, I think, which the back ones had a lot less tread than the front ones.
Yeah.
And tuner, there weren't deletes and stuff back then. It was tuner, air intake, and exhaust. But that truck rocked.
That truck was fast.
It was super duper fast.
Pulling up next to this old guy in a Hawaiian shirt at Route 1 and kind of looked over at us and bumped the throttle a couple times, and next thing you know, we took off and left him in nothing but a cloud of black smoke.
Big old Super Duty. We've got some pictures of that truck.
I think that truck ran high 12.
Something like that. We got pictures at the drag strip. Matter of fact, I found them in one of my vehicles recently, and you could see it just blowing smoke, and the tire had white smoke coming off of it. I mean, it was pretty quick.
If you could keep it hooked up, it would. There wasn't much on the street that.
It was pretty crazy. 6.0s made good power, and that was the newer 04, different tuning, and there was so much weirdness, a whole nother day's episode about 6.0s and when they came out.
Yeah, 6.0s that were real random. It was weird. I happened to get one of the faster ones out there, and mine was bone stock.
Forever.
I didn't have any exhaust on it. Didn't have air intake. Not while I owned it. Then on the individual that bought it,
he added all that stuff.
He added a lot of stuff to it. Added a little bit more lift to it. Went to 12 inches and 40s, and some chrome wheels that weren't, or chrome
plated.
Yeah, it was something that wasn't quite my style, but looked good on the truck.
Which is really funny. That's another thing for some of the younger viewers out there that are loving. We actually produce a wheel now that's aluminum with a billet background. Wheels were aluminum forever. But, well, go back past that. 50s and 60s, chrome wheels were popular. 70s, chrome, Krager mags, all that stuff. People hated them because they rusted. They literally would wax them in the winter and drive all year with wax on them, or drive all winter with wax on them. They'd spray them with WD-40. They'd put grease on them because they wouldn't last. Well, then aluminum came along, best thing since sliced bread, until you got to polish it.
Right.
Then you go spend a weekend polishing your wheels, especially when they're big, deep barrels. So then chrome came out, and Fuel was one of the first with chrome, and it wasn't great. It was pretty much crap. If it didn't rust, it peeled. And, then black came a thing. And the black wheels I never thought would ever see their way on a vehicle in our parking lot. And if you look over there right now, there's probably 85% black wheels on the parking lot. But that was something brand new.
I remember in '96, I had an '88 Bronco on 6 and 3, black on 38-inch TSLs on black wagon wheels, and it wasn't quite the most popular combination with everybody around. And then next thing you know, everybody and their brother with a TJ was running black rock crawler. Black rock crawler wheels didn't exist when I painted my wagon wheels black.
It was.
But that
it was all
style for
white.
me actually came from the Outer Banks. Because down there, the white wagon wheels would rust so bad, they'd paint their wheels with bottom paint of a boat. And so that's where I got that black wheel idea from, was Nag's Head. You ride around Nag's Head, and everybody that lived down there had Carolina plates. They had white wagon wheels. They were painted with black bottom paint from a boat to keep them from rusted.
Another real, before I forget, I've been meaning to say this one before, and he may or may not even know this. We ran a lot of Super Somper Truxas tires, which was a weird looking tire, kind of looked like it had a flame. Didn't have a lot of tread, but it rode good, and it was big and bubbly, and it was popular because it was new back then. It had a real cool side tread. Well, we used them and used them and used them. Well, back then, I'd have a lot of used tires that we sold. Believe it or not, I had enough time to deal with what a trading post, I guess. No, Craigslist. It was Craigslist. So I'd put them on there. We'd take them off, whatever. Well, Truxas tires now, if you're a tractor pulling guy watching, you use Truxas tires. Like people use boggers and they use claws. But why would you use this weird Truxas tire? Well, I had a guy come along and he was broke. Like literally, he was the bottom of the barrel as far as a tractor puller guy goes. But a nice guy, and he needed tires. He bought 4 used, halfway wore out Truxas tires from me. And he told me what he was using them for, and I was like, oh, you give me a couple $100, I don't care, you're getting some tires. But that was where that trend started.
Yeah.
He went out there with one of the weakest trucks, the weakest setups. Again, not knocking him. Everybody's got to start somewhere, but he was a beginner and on a budget. He went out there and won. Yeah. And then that tire took off.
That tire originally was marketed as like a sand tire.
Right.
And on that hard pack red clay track that they build for the tractor pulling, it was almost like running a drag slick on a drag strip.
Yep.
It had so much surface area.
Yep.
And with a low PSI, the traction that you'd get from that.
The bogger was gripping so much, so it would lose traction.
Right.
The claw was directing it, and it was almost too much too. So this tire was a perfect combination of it would slip enough, and then it would grab enough. Yep. And that's a good analogy. It was like being at the drag strip.
Right.
You wanted the car to hook up.
It was like being on a set of slicks.
That man was blown away. Like he has been a customer. He's still a customer, and he was thrilled. Like he spent nothing for some tires, and he whipped all them big money guys' butt. Now, it didn't take long. They all figured it out. Now that's every truck has that tire on it. And I can't swear we're the first person to put that on a pulling truck, but I can promise you that set the stage around here. There was not a truck, period, at those events on that tire. Period. They were all on boggers and claws.
Yep.
Every one of them.
Yeah, you might see one every once in a while on an old set of groundhogs or something like that.
Yeah.
But that tire combination just developed so much traction on that hard pack.
And it was good on sand, which buddy Danny, he ended up on a set of those in 44s, one of the first guys to be on the big set. Yeah. And I bypassed. I never ran a set on my personal trucks ever. I kind of skipped that phase, but he ran 44s for years.
And they kind of came in as the time that the original 39 Baja, I think, was going out of production. Yeah. So it took the place of that look.
Yeah.
to have that big, you know, sand.
It was a
tire,
bubbly sand
but,
tire with a
yeah.
cool sidewall tread, and you guys that follow know the whole Mickey Thompson story of that. And that's for another whole day too. We've done some stuff, but
Yeah.
that was some crazy fun times as well with the big old Mickeys. And Jason's still kicking along. He's still got OBS.
Yeah.
OBS.
Yeah, I do. I got a 97. Was a F250 extended cab long bed that has since been converted to a straight axle dually. Originally came with TTB, and we put a Kingpin 60 in the front, dually rear in the back, locked on 6-inch springs, 35 1250s all the way around. KS turbo, KC turbo, Banks intercooler, injectors, tuner. A lot of money in the transmission. It's just one of them things you just keep replacing parts to break, and then you find the next week link. So it goes on down the line, you know.
And that was the cool part about, you know, Super Duties. There wasn't a weak link, you know.
Other than the original rear drive shaft.
Right.
Once you got past 8 inches, and then y'all came up with an innovative design to replace that.
Which just led to me thinking about that. Yeah, because we had a buddy tractor pull with us. We went to a tractor pull. We just showed up randomly in the parking lot to watch. And I don't know, was it Grayson or somebody got to talking to the promoter? Could have even been before we knew him.
It was the boy with the Dodge. I can't remember his name right now. But he had a green Dodge on 38.
Mm-hmm.
And then they
let us come down and pull, like exhibition. Right. And right. He had his gray Super Duty, I had my gray Super Duty. And then we had a buddy that did not have the upgraded drive shaft in the back, and he blew his drive shaft out. He was towed to the shop to have a drive shaft put in the next day.
In fact, my truck, originally when I lifted it, I spent a lot of money on a double carbon style drive shaft from a company I believe they're out of Colorado, and ended up breaking that combination, which was supposed to be indestructible. I mean, it was like the industry-leading Super Duty rear drive shaft, which was still a two-piece drive shaft running a double cardan joint.
Yep. At that height, when you took off, you got a like you literally thought your tires were bouncing off the ground in the back. Yeah. And I remember Big Dave. You know, he was a little upset, and I'm like, dude, this is just what you get. And then, of course, I guess he asked you, and you're like, yeah, that's it. You can spend all this money. Yeah. So we real quickly, this was crew cab short bids, which became popular in that era. Real quickly found a fix for that in the way we positioned the rear axle, the drive shaft, taking out the weak link, and eliminating that takeoff vibration.
Eliminating the carrier bearing, putting in a one-piece drive shaft. Nobody was doing it. Everybody said it couldn't be done.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the manufacturer that I bought my drive shaft. They're still in business today, and they build a lot of
the same place that did my big shaft for the front of the red truck.
Yeah.
They use implement machine parts, like for tractor bush hogs and things.
Right.
You know, is what they use. But I forgot he had done that. He spent tons of money.
I spent $2,000 on a drive shaft combination that lasted maybe 6 months. And y'all came out with a fix that was probably a third.
Yeah, I think it was $500.
Yeah.
And if we were lifting the truck, there was no extra money. We literally took all the old crap out, put the new in.
Yeah.
As soon as we did that, we did Dave's truck, and he's like, dude, that's like walking around. I remember his analogy like it was yesterday. He said, that's like walking around with a splinter in your finger for months and then finally pulling it out. Like, it was annoying.
Yeah.
Every time you took off from a stoplight, no matter how hard or how easy you were, the truck just shook to death.
The chatter.
Yeah.
And it got rid of that, and it was heavy duty. I mean, I can remember.
There was a lot of burnouts done.
Yeah, a lot of burnouts done on that drive shaft, especially Parnelli Jones.
Yeah.
Parnelli Jones, you could light them up like it wasn't no tomorrow. That's right.
Yeah. But we got out there in front of that crowd and tractor pulled with the trucks, and I had a manual. My truck's a manual, still is.
I was getting it up.
Yeah, and we'd never been on a track before, much less tractor pulled. It looked cool, so we did it. And of course, I ran out of steam real fast. So,
low gear.
So what do? You shift. Well, you're not supposed to shift with the man on the back because he about fell out the chair. and just about hit my truck, but the slack came back when I ramped it again, and he about ejected out of his chair.
we got a little slap on the hand for that.
Yeah, he
I
said,
think it was a
"Don't come back."
second to third gear shift at
yeah.
full boost, and he didn't know, the guy on the sled did not appreciate that ride one bit.
He was.
I think he had been in rides with rigs with 2,000 horsepower that were smoother than that ride that day.
He didn't leave very happy with us, and I don't think I've ever done that again since. Cause he'd probably put the plow down on me when I hooked up, so it didn't work out.
Yeah.
But we did get a drive shaft customer out of it that day. He was towed from there to the shop for a drive shaft, and our trucks pulled pretty good. We had it was a good little time, and we have some people now that are friends that literally saw us there and remember that. And this was a big event.
Yeah.
It was main stage when we drove down there and did it.
Field day of the past.
Yep, that was funny times.
It's changed hands and become a totally different event, but it was one of the probably biggest crowds of tractor pulling. There were better tractor pulling events in Miller's Tavern and stuff like that, with a lot smaller crowd.
Yeah.
This crowd was a mix of people that were there for the tractor pull, but they were also there for other events and stuff going on at the show, so it was a lot of people there.
I hate we wait till the end for this, so we'll clip it in just a minute. But I got one more that should have told a long time ago, but he can tell it a little better. Especially when people talk about these trucks being trailer queens and show queens and stuff like that. So my red truck, we took it to a lot of events, and we did trailer it sometimes because we were riding in a crew cab. Couldn't ride in so many people in a single cab truck. So we went to an event. He towed my truck down there, and it was a mud bog. It was a big mud bog in a guy's field, not too far away from town for him, quite a bit of ways from me. And we unloaded the truck, and real quickly there was some lappy mouthies of Trailer Queen truck showed up. It was big, it was drivable. I drove that truck. It was my street truck. I guess it was on 46s.
I think it was on 49 IROCs.
Okay,
49
IROCs.
IROCs, and so we made a couple passes to the mud bog, and decided we were going to show them that truck could be street driven. Well,
It was a
about
long
a 20-minute ride up 360. There was a power washer.
Yeah.
Coin power washer. So we got in the truck, and we're riding 60 mile an hour on 49-inch IROCs, which at the time. Nobody was doing that in a square body. I mean, nobody's running 70 miles an hour down the road on 49-inch IROCs. We drove up 360, watched the truck, came back as clean as it could be.
Yeah.
And people were like, what happened? And we're like, we drove it up to the power washer, man.
Washed it, cleaned it, came back looking spick and span. There was no truck show. We just showed up because it was like a tailgate thing. But as soon as them boys, Trailer Queen, this and that, it had a front drive shaft. That truck always had a front drive shaft. No matter how much money I spent, it always had a front drive shaft, and it had a crazy one. It came out, and it went down like this. It was dual cardane here and dual cardane here. That was unbelievable. And the drive shaft was almost straight down. This truck was, at that time, square body. You guys struggle with 12 inches of lift, get a drive shaft in. This had 20...
8-inch hangers, didn't you?
Yeah, 8-inch hangers, 12-inch kit, springs stacked, long travel shackle in the back, 24 inches probably of lift. And we ran a mud bog. We did not get pulled out. We made very successful passes, and it was definitely the talk for a little while. And especially when we came out the last time, truck covered in mud, I was a little upset because it was a show truck to me. And we just said, okay, we just keep on going. We came out the pit, went down the driveway, left the event, went straight to the car wash.
The event didn't have a wash station.
No,
and,
nothing.
Of course, it had a brand new set of polished weld wheels on it, and there was some real nasty red clay. So I think the original inspiration was to get that red clay off of those wheels as soon as possible.
Yeah, which we did.
But it still led to an interesting story because people had a lot to say about us running it up and down 360 because we were not only inches above bumper height law in the state of Virginia, we were feet above bumper height law.
And that's an area that's very highly patrolled, state police, and that's the ones you don't like. And I'm not condoning doing anything wrong or illegal, but I knew the truck was safe. I drove the truck. We were a long ways from home, and we were a long ways from that power washing station. Thinking back on it,
Yeah.
that was a long ride on racing gas and everything else. But yeah, we made the ride. We got washed off. We came back. We enjoyed the event. It was a great time.
Yeah.
It was a heck of a show. We went back many times after. Those
Yeah.
guys always would call, put the word out. Again, it wasn't even Facebook back then.
Nah,
There was no Facebook. You had internet.
It was a Good Friday event that they'd run every year. And there were 2 or 3 other, and then as that kind of grew into about 5 or 6 different guys running a Good Friday mud bog. And
Yeah. And then we did our own at one point.
And then they did the one where Jake totaled the
Truck.
square body.
Yeah, that's a early on YouTube video that's gotten pretty viral. It's not on our channel, but my cousin went down there with a big race car motor and a put together truck, and within about a minute of coming off the trailer, we were walking across. He's already in line, in there, zinged it, rolled it, and they picked it up with a piece of equipment with a thumb and took it out like it was a toy
Basically
and tossed it up.
Ripped the cab completely, almost off.
Tossed it up in the woods. So
pretty sad time, but
we actually used the red truck that time. Went through because we had to go through the mud. I did not intend on going in the mud that time. Went through the mud to retrieve his truck to drag it back and load it on the trailer. And had to have 4-wheel drive because it was nasty.
Yeah, I've got some pictures of somewhere. In fact, that year I went down with a '79 Ram Charger.
You put it together?
3811.
Skinny.
I put together.
Yeah, for that event.
Yeah,
we built it at the
and
shop.
that was kind of when the 3811 Bogger was first becoming popular with mud bog trucks. Because that truck, I literally, no lift, sawzall, the fuel cell in the back.
We did all the stuff up there and made it work.
Conveyor belt for a mud
Skid
flap
plate,
underneath, and it made a full pass through that mud bog on being a bonus stock 318, 4-speed, stock rears, no lift, just cut the fenders, 3811 boggers, and from there, the 3811 bogger became so popular that they even made their own class for the 3811 because the 3811 was dominating.
Yep, all the mud bog stuff.
Mud bogs.
Yep, it was skinny. It would cut to the bottom. It was just.
It was light.
It was light. It was a crazy. Then people started staggering it in the front with fat tires in the back. We ran that at one point on one of our trucks, but yeah, that was a fairly new tire. I remember you was like, "You sure?" I mean, we wanted everything wide, He said, "Nope, I want this skinny wheel." We ordered everything up.
Yeah.
Chopped it all up in the shop and tossed it together, and
it worked. It wasn't fast. It wasn't fast, but it made a full pass through the deep hole before it blew the radiator, and that was the end of that night.
Yeah. Well, guys, we appreciate it. We'll go bring you more. Jason's got stories to tell. He's been around for a long time, and there's several more. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. I guess you call this podcast number 2. We got a couple others we need to clip in and do some things we haven't edited yet, but this one figured today was a good day to do it. It was cold outside, and we might as well get it all and spell it all out there.
That's right.
We got a lot more. There's some ATVs, there's some trucks, there's some lift kits, there's some
banshee stories here.
there's a whole lot of other stories to be told of some times, and some fun stories from the shop and some of these events, and some of the other friends that'll be on here. Some of you've heard mentioned, and again, when I tell you guys our customer client base comes in, they don't ever go anywhere. Like, they become a customer for life, and a lot of it's to do with Jason. A lot of the customers have grown out of it. I got hands full of them, Corey and others, that they were monthly customers for having 2 or 3 trucks, that we were doing stuff to. You grow out of it. The trend changes, things happen, but there's also a lot of them that are still around. There's a lot of them that still come back just for general maintenance, get tires put on their stock work trucks. We appreciate each and every one of our customers. We've always enjoyed them. They've always become good friends in the most part. When we combined those 2 groups at the beach, it was that was about the time the beach said you can't do that no more. And if you follow OBX and all that, and you follow her down there, you've seen the groups we're talking about, and it went to where you had to park single file. We had trucks 3 and 4 trucks deep, 20 trucks long, trucks in a circle. It was horseshoe pits, and it was pandemonium. It was organized chaos, and I became kind of the spokesmodel. I still have today the park ranger's number in my phone. because he'd be like, "Hey, your boy is getting." I was like, oh, "Okay, whatever," you know. People would get out of hand, and I had to be the non-drinker,
Right.
non-fun haver guy that
You had
kept
to-
everybody under control,
Yeah.
and became the little policeman for the policeman because they didn't want to have to do it because that was like a mob scene for them.
Yeah.
One guy to walk up on 100 people on the beach. There's a picture of a bunch of us posed next to the red truck one year, and a bunch of big old muscle boys and all hanging out, and that was the crew. When those crews came together, it was pretty fascinating what
Yeah.
took place.
It was a neat event.
And you said you scattered a little two over here and a little two over here and a little two over there, kind of outcasty kind of people, but it was a good crowd. It was a lot of good people. All those guys still around, and now they got kids and families. This goes back to.
And unfortunately, erosion Oregon Inlet's is not the area that it used to be. So
If you go to Oregon Inlet now, you got to buy a pass, you got to take a class, and you got to park single file. Period. There's no exceptions. And the pictures, if we had drones back then, it would have been amazing.
Oh man.
But they'd been trunning trucks long, 4 or 5 trucks deep. Like you could barely get around the chaos of
You
what
had
was.
to take pictures on panoramic.
Yeah, we didn't have
You
that.
couldn't get everybody
Yeah.
in the same picture, all the trucks in one picture.
No, it was.
'Cause that was something that had just started to come out on
Yeah.
film, just the panoramic picture
Yeah.
about the same time.
Yeah, that was. There was some cool times. There's some stuff that a lot of people just can't appreciate. We know you guys are watching from all over the world. This is just our little small town stuff and a lot of history with it. I told you guys we're going to bring you the walkthrough time of the business. Working on that clip by clip. That's getting really good, coming together really nicely. And like I said, Jason is a staple of things to from around here, from the shop to the car lot to customers to bringing other friends. It's been a lot. It's been a half a life.
Yeah, long road.
It darn sure
Good
has.
times though.
Yep.
Good times.
Thanks, guys. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. We'll be back with some more stuff, and we'll get back to doing some lives and finish this day out. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you coming in.